Good morning, everybody. We're going to continue our look today at the struggle. The struggle, we talked yesterday about Romans 7:15, and the struggle, the first struggle on this list is not being who you know you ought to be. We talked yesterday about Paul wrestling with the idea of knowing what he should do, and for some reason, choosing to do the opposite, and how many of us could relate to that. Today, we're going to continue looking in Romans 7. We're going to skip a few verses up. And Paul writes in these verses, I know that nothing good lives in me, that is, in my sinful nature. I want to do what is right, but I can't. Okay, Paul is still harping on that. He knows he needs to do what is right, but he can't. He also says, I know that nothing good lives in me, that is, in my sinful nature. Um, Kind of a deep thought there, and can be kind of frustrating for us to look at that and to think that about ourselves, because I think many of us, to be honest with you, many of us can look in the mirror and say that we're good people. But Paul is saying quite the opposite in this passage. But I think it's important for us to understand what Paul is saying. In the eyes of God, because of his sinful nature, Paul is just saying, I just, because I have sin in my life, I can't I can't stand in the presence of God. I can't be in the presence of God. God is holy. He has no sin. Sin is a church word for those of you who might not be familiar with it or might not understand it. And for today's purposes, just very simply think of sin, of something that separates you from God. Okay, something that separates you from God. So obviously, Paul doesn't want anything in his life that separates him from God. And I think many of us feel that same way too. We want to overcome what's called sin in our lives, things that we do, habits that we have, our very nature to separate from God. That goes all the way back to Adam and Eve. Um, but I think Paul is teaching us here a very real and helpful reality, the fact that left to our own devices, we are not good, and that might be kind of tough for some folks to hear, and some folks might be turned off by me saying those words. But try to understand where I'm coming from in that, and understanding that our sinful nature separates us from God, and left to our own devices and left to ourselves. We have no concept of right and wrong. I talked yesterday about knowing what's right and what's wrong. And in order to know what's right and what's wrong, you have to have that standard, that measuring stick to know right and wrong. And for most, if not all of us, it is God. God provides for us what is right and what is wrong. Otherwise, people would just define right and wrong by what makes them feel good, whether or not it quote unquote hurts other people, and in a very wrong way to consider what is right and what is wrong. So the struggle number two that Paul deals with, that I want you to all to consider today, is this. Paul has to get to the point where he admits and understands personal failure. That he just can't do it by himself. And that's where Paul is in this passage in Romans 7:18. Um, and again, going back to Sunday's message as a reminder, I asked you all to check your heart, and the changes that we want to make in our lives to try to do what's right. Is I think we have to look honestly at our heart and realize that we do have sin as part of our nature, and that sin needs to be overcome. So, I don't mean to be a downer on that one, but trust me, tomorrow we look at the next struggle, but more importantly, for all these struggles that we have, we're going to look at Paul's statement of what the solution is to these struggles and how we can overcome these struggles in our lives. So if you're out there today and you're wanting to do what's right, and you're working on it, and you're trying to do what's right, stay focused on that. And if you should stumble and fall today, in that regard, pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, and keep going. Keep searching out what's right, and keep trying to do what's right. Take heart, because you are making a difference, even if it's only at some points just in yourself. you're becoming a better person when you do that. So I hope you all have a fantastic day today. I'll tell you what, today I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to the classes. Teachers, maybe there's a young man in your class who would like to lead in prayer, or maybe they have some personal concerns that they would like to share, or maybe teachers themselves might be willing to lead the prayer for the day today. So I hope you all have a fantastic day today, and I will see you tomorrow when we wrap up this idea of struggles. Have a great day, everybody. See you tomorrow.